Hello, everybody, and welcome to the November 28th, 2018 edition of the Ephrom Josine Show. I am your host, the one, the only, Ephrom Josine. Wait. Oh, man. Oh, man. My idiot senses are tingling. I feel like I have to go to Charlie Kirk's Twitter account right now. Yeah, fun fact. Just before I started recording this episode, I went through all my favorite right-wingers' Twitter accounts, and just before I clicked off Charlie Kirk, I saw this, and it's beautiful. Did you know a member of the KKK once sat on the Supreme Court of the United States? I imagine quite a few have, honestly. I mean, the Klan was a very large political group for a good century. So eventually it were to have happened. He wasn't a Republican. He was a radical Democrat appointed by progressive. Why do you have progressive in quotes there? That doesn't even make any sense. Hero Franklin Delano Roosevelt. These are the facts they do not teach in schools. Well, Charlie, I'll give you credit for getting a little bit ahead Japanese American internment camps, but you're still being very misleading. Yes, it is true for the record that Hugo Black was both a member of the Ku Klux Klan and on the Supreme Court. However, there's quite a bit of difference. Basically, Black left the KKK in 1925. Now wait, I hear you saying. Roosevelt didn't become president for another 7 years. When was he appointed? 1937, 12 years later. After that, he became a senator from Alabama and then the secretary of the Democratic Caucus, or Democratic Conference, as well as the chair of the Senate Education Committee for a brief period of time. That was who FDR was appointing, not the Klan member. And even then, that was a very fragile move to keep the South in favor of his policy, which was bad, mind you, the appointing a Klansman part. However, that's just the fault of people kind of sucking. You can't do anything about that, dude. But did you know there was also a former Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan who once served in Louisiana State House? It wasn't a Democrat. It was David Duke, who served 2 terms as a member of the House of Louisiana from the 81st District as a Republican from the years 1989 to 1992. You know what the difference is between someone like David Duke and someone like Hugo Black? Hugo Black actually later on got rid of most of his horribly racist views. He was still racist, don't get me wrong, by modern standards by the time of his death. However, he wasn't bad enough to be in the KKK. Duke is still an anti-Semite, objectively. Where are you on that? Anyway, so yesterday we talked about Shapiro, and apparently that means I'm talking about him all week. Uh, that just seems to be how it works now. Because while I was going around looking at Town Hall, I found this. Medicare for all is healthcare. Is no healthcare cure-all. So I thought that was Medicare for no one for a second. I'll give you, you're a little bit more clever than that. We've debunked this, of course, a million times, but again, I haven't even read this yet, so we'll just jump in blind. This week, Congresswoman-elect Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, of course this is about her, D. New York, tweeted out a letter from Spectrum Health to one Hilda Elizabeth Martin. The letter described the clinic's rejection of a heart transplant of Martin's based on a lack of, quote, more secure financial plans for in-supremacies medical coverage. The clinic added, quote, the committee is recommending a fundraising effort of $10,000. Ooh. You don't see a problem with that? Being told, yeah, go beg on GoFundMe. I love that, by the way. Look, sorry you have cancer, but thoughts and prayers. Open a GoFundMe. Is that just how it's working now? Ocasio-Cortez tweeted, quote, insurance groups are recommending GoFundMe as official policy, where customers can die if they can't raise the goal in time, but sure, single-payer healthcare is unreasonable. That's actually a good point, huh? First off, Ocasio-Cortez is simply incorrect. The letter itself isn't directly from the insurance company, but from the clinic. Well, that makes it so much better. Who do you think pays the clinic in a single-payer system, Ben? Like, out of curiosity, who do you think? Like, that is honestly the silliest point I've seen made yet. Also, he has no citation for this in normal Ben Shapiro fashion. Actually, in normal town hall fashion, I swear to God, they only link to their own stories. It declined to perform the heart surgery because the patient didn't have the ability to pay for the medication necessary to prevent organ rejection by the immune system. And that would be fixed under a single-payer system. Furthermore, deductions on insurance that would cover such drugs under Obamacare would certainly surpass the $10,000 required by the clinic. And those drugs shouldn't cost anything. This is actually pathetically simple. Most of all, though, Martin's health care was provided, in this case by Medicare Part B. She herself explained via a since-deleted post on Facebook, quote, with my 20% copay for pharmaceuticals under Part B, it will cost me about $700 a month for my Part B copay for an anti-rejection drug. Once I reach my $4,500 annual, my cost is $0. So they want me to show that I can cover my $4,500 deductible by saving $10,000, which I will do. So would Medicare for All, Ocasio-Cortez's preferable solution, actually take care of the problem? Or would it exacerbate it, given that nationalized healthcare creates more rationing, not less? The amount of rationing doesn't actually change. That doesn't make any sense. There's not suddenly more healthcare under a capitalist system. That idea has been debunked time and time again. There's only a limited amount of resources on this planet, after all. However, in a universal healthcare system, you are given healthcare based on who needs it the most. In a capitalist system, it's a wallet biopsy. But even then, no one is saying it's going to reduce the amount of rationing. We're saying it's going to be done in a smarter way. There's a reason national healthcare systems like Sweden's and Britain's have necessitated increased private spending outside of the ration systems, citation needed. And even then, in the case of Britain, that's mostly due to cuts by a guy named David Cameron, who, if I'm not mistaken, you're a fan of. Look him up sometime. As Scott Alice of the Hoover Institute, I don't know what's funnier, that he's citing the same place Thomas Sowell is from, or that he's citing an institute named after Herbert Hoover. Points out, quote, Sweden has increased its spending on private care for the elderly by 50% in the past decade, abolished its government monopoly over pharmacies, and made other reforms. Last year alone, the British government spent more than $1 billion on health care from private and other non-NHS providers. Okay, now where's your proof that improved the health care? If anything, the biggest scandal in NHS history, Evans, the one you kept talking about? No, wait, I don't remember if you specifically kept talking about it. I know Walsh talked about it, and Khrushchev just wouldn't shut up about it. That happened in the past year. So privatized healthcare seems to have made the NHS worse, not better. And if you want to talk about last year, wasn't Gar last year? You know, again, another case you people didn't shut up about despite the fact we debunked your talking points on. But even by the stories your website keeps posting, nothing you say ever makes sense. And the entire global medical industry benefits from America's private healthcare spending, which drives the creation of new drugs. Most medical research is done at universities by students. They aren't getting profit from it. So what happens when America no longer covers the cost for such pharmaceuticals? Our Food and Drug Administration may be slow, but it's a lot faster than its European equivalent. Citation needed. If anything, aren't these also the people who talk about how most of Europe has higher economic freedom rankings than the US? Now, mind you, the Economic Freedom Index is basically entirely decided on corporate tax rates, but that's besides the point. No, it's not literally only decided on corporate tax rates before anyone goes around saying that. That's what he said. No, I didn't. Which is why the vast majority of new cancer drugs are developed and made available faster in the United States. Citation needed. But even then, we'll assume you're right. Now, Ben, your claim is purely that profit's the only driving factor in inventing medicine. I recommend you look up a guy named Dr. Salt, the guy who invented the polio vaccine. You'll find him fascinating. In the end, Martin did GoFundMe to raise $20,000, not the requisite $10,000, in less than 2 days. She nearly raised $30,000 from over 400 people. Therefore, problem solved. She's gonna live forever now, basically. GoFundMe may not be scalable for everyone. That defeats your whole argument, but okay. But neither is Medicare for All, which is why California scrapped the proposed state version of fear of doubling the budget. That's not why they did it. They did it because Jerry Brown was told by the pharmaceutical industries he couldn't do it. Because Jerry Brown is kind of a coward. You know, Man in the Empty Suit? Is that his name? It's probably his name. Better access to high-quality healthcare can only be made a reality by an increase in supply, not demand, through innovation, not regulation, through incentivation, not cram downs. Is not dying really not an incentive anymore? And that means that all this is accumulating over Medicare for All misses the point and often hangs those most in need out to dry. Ooh, now it's scary. So yeah, we've heard this all before. I'm Ephrom, and good night.